King Charles kept working despite his cancer diagnosis. Kate Middleton managed her family and responsibilities throughout her chemotherapy treatment. Prince William balanced caring for his family while continuing his royal duties. And George, still young, is growing up watching people who didn't abandon their discipline even during difficult times. I mention this because that's exactly what discipline really means, continuing to show up in hard moments, whether anyone's watching or not. Nobody claps for you at 5 a.m. Nobody films you saying no to the thing that feels good right now. Nobody posts about the version of you that shows up on the days you don't feel like it. And that's exactly why most people never become who they're capable of becoming, because the part of success that actually matters is invisible. We love talking about motivation. We love talking about dreams, goals, vision boards, 5-year plans. But almost nobody wants to talk about the boring, repetitive, unglamorous thing that actually determines whether any of that happens: discipline. Here's the truth nobody tells you when you're starting out. Motivation is a spark. It gets you to day 1, maybe day 3. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes based on your mood, your sleep, your stress, the weather, honestly. If you're only moving when you feel motivated, you're going to move a handful of days a year. Discipline is what shows up on the other 360. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who built something real, a business, a body, a skill, a reputation. None of them were consistently motivated. What they had was a system that didn't care how they felt that day. They built a structure strong enough to carry them even when the fire went out. And that's the first thing to understand about discipline. It's not a personality trait. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's not about willpower, and it's definitely not about being a naturally hardcore person. Discipline is a skill, and like every skill, it's built through repetition, not intensity. Most people get this backwards. They try to build discipline the same way they try to lose weight fast, by going extreme. New Year's resolution energy. Wake up at 4:30 a.m., 2-hour workout, cold plunge, meditate for an hour, read 50 pages, eat perfectly clean, starting Monday. And by Thursday, they're exhausted, defeated, and back to zero. Not because they're weak, because the plan was designed to fail. Real discipline isn't built through extreme bursts. It's built through embarrassingly small, consistent actions that you repeat until they stop requiring willpower at all. That's the secret nobody wants to hear, because it's not exciting. But it's the only thing that actually works. Let's talk about habits, because discipline and habits are deeply connected, but they're not the same thing. Discipline is what you use in the beginning, when the action still feels hard and unnatural. Habit is what discipline eventually becomes, once the action requires almost no effort at all. Every habit you have right now, brushing your teeth, checking your phone first thing in the morning, the way you make your coffee, none of that took willpower today. It took willpower the first few times. Then your brain built a groove for it. Discipline is the effort required to dig that groove. Habit is what happens once it's dug. This is actually good news, because it means discipline isn't something you need forever. You just need it long enough, on one specific behavior, until that behavior becomes automatic. Then you can point that same discipline at the next thing. So how do you actually build it? Let's get practical, because inspiration without a method is just noise. First, start absurdly small, smaller than feels worth it. If you want to build a reading habit, don't commit to 50 pages a day. Commit to 1 page. If you want to build a workout habit, don't commit to an hour in the gym. Commit to putting on your shoes and walking out the door. The goal in the beginning isn't progress. The goal is proving to yourself that you're someone who follows through. Once that identity is established, scaling up becomes natural. Second, attach the new behavior to something you already do automatically. This is one of the most underrated tools in building discipline. If you already brush your teeth every morning without fail, that's a fixed point in your day you can build around. After I brush my teeth, I do 10 push-ups. After I pour my coffee, I write down my top 3 tasks for the day. You're not trying to find willpower from nothing. You're borrowing the automaticity of a habit you've already mastered. Third, remove friction ruthlessly. Discipline is precious and limited, especially early on, so don't waste it fighting your environment. If you want to stop scrolling your phone before bed, don't rely on willpower alone. Physically put the phone in another room. If you want to work out in the morning, lay your clothes out the night before. Every obstacle you remove in advance is one less decision your tired, unmotivated future self has to make. Fourth, track your streak, not your mood. This is huge. Most people quit a new habit not because it's too hard, but because they had one bad day and let it turn into a bad week. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is never miss twice. Miss one day, fine. Life happens. But the very next opportunity you show up. One missed day is an event. 2 missed days is the start of a new pattern, and that pattern is usually quitting. Now let's talk about something people rarely mention, the emotional side of discipline. Because it's not just a logistics problem, it's an identity problem. Every time you follow through on something you told yourself you'd do, you're not just completing a task, you're sending a message to your own brain. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. And every time you bail, snooze the alarm, skip the workout, tell yourself, I'll start Monday, you're sending the opposite message. I am someone who doesn't follow through. Over time, that message becomes your self-image, and your self-image becomes your ceiling. This is why discipline compounds in a way that goes far beyond the specific habit you're building. Someone who's disciplined about their morning routine tends to become more disciplined at work. Someone who's disciplined with their finances tends to become more disciplined with their health. It's not magic, it's identity. Once you see yourself as someone who does hard things consistently, that belief starts showing up everywhere. Let's address the excuse that comes up the most. I don't have the motivation. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Stop waiting to feel motivated before you act. Act first. Motivation is often the result of action, not the cause of it. You don't feel like going for a run, so you don't go, so you never get the rush of having gone, so you never feel motivated to go again tomorrow. Break that cycle by acting before the feeling arrives. Almost every time the motivation shows up a few minutes into the task, but only if you've already started. Another excuse. I don't have time. Be honest with yourself here. Most people don't have a time problem, they have a priority problem. The habit you actually value gets the time. The one you don't gets replaced by scrolling, or another episode, or just 5 more minutes in bed. You don't need more hours in the day. You need to decide clearly that this thing matters enough to take the hour you're currently giving to something else. Let's talk about setbacks, because they're not optional, they're guaranteed. You will get sick. You will travel. You will have a week where everything falls apart and the habit slips. This is where most people quit completely, because they attach a moral judgment to the slip. I failed. I'm not disciplined. What's the point? But a professional and an amateur aren't different because the professional never struggles. They're different in how quickly they return after the struggle. The people who actually build something real over years aren't the ones with a perfect streak. They're the ones who fell off 50 times and got back up 51. Discipline isn't the absence of failure. It's the refusal to let failure become the end of the story. Here's something worth sitting with. Nobody becomes disciplined because they suddenly feel different inside. They become disciplined because they acted like a disciplined person long enough that it stopped feeling like acting. You don't wait to become the person who works out every day, then start working out. You start working out imperfectly, awkwardly, some days barely, and the person you become is built by the repetition itself. So if you're waiting for some future version of yourself to magically have more willpower, more motivation, more discipline than you do right now, stop waiting. That version of you doesn't exist yet because you haven't built them. You build them one small, boring, unremarkable action at a time. The version of you a year from now is being written by what you do today, not by what you plan to do someday. Nobody sees the early mornings, the moments you chose the harder thing when nobody was watching, the days you kept a promise to yourself that nobody else even knew you made. That's the part of the story that never makes it onto a highlight reel. But it's the only part that actually built anything. So pick one small thing. Start today. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait to feel ready. Do the smallest version of it right now, and then do it again tomorrow. That's it. That's the whole secret. There isn't a more complicated answer hiding somewhere else.